Welcome to Source One Saturday Night Mashup. My name is Nico Lagan. My co-host, as always, Jason Lavigne. And tonight, our guests, Jeff Evely, Stockwell Day, David Parker, and Lisa Robinson. On the menu tonight, we ask you a very, very simple question. Budget 2025, can Canada survive it, or is it too late? Guys, good night.
Good night.
Good
Good
night.
night. Hello, good night. Welcome aboard. We always start by a small introduction. Nobody can introduce you guys better than you can. At least that's my opinion. So we'll do a little round table. David Parker.
Well, for those who don't know me, I was born in rural Alberta to a pastor and a homeschool facilitator, and I was homeschooled all the way until I started university at 16. I finished university at Trinity Western University and then began working in Ottawa from 20. Well, my first internship was in 2008, and then I left Ottawa in 2019 to move back to Alberta. And then I've been traveling all over the country doing campaigns and being involved with the Conservative Party of Canada for that entire time until September 2021, when Jason Kenney brought down the mandates on the churches and locked them down and put fences up around them. And I'm the son of a pastor, and my faith is very important to me. At the time, I'd kind of fallen away from my faith, but I was very upset by that for familial reasons above all else. I mean, it's my own father as a pastor, and to see that kind of thing coming caused me to realize that the government must be opposed at every corner now, and we must limit government in order to survive if we're going to. Tyranny is on the way. So I've been fighting ever since. I started a group called Take Back Alberta, which recruited 40,000 people and led a grassroots revolution against Jason Kenney. Overthrew him, took over the board of the United Conservative Party, and then we were able to remove electronic voting in all elections in Alberta, including municipal and school board. So that's my political resume. I worked for Stephen Harper in his office, the Prime Minister's office. I've worked for federal ministers. I worked for Ed Fast. I worked for a lot of politicians, got a lot of politicians elected, hate politicians now. I think they're all pretty much scum.
Great.
I've seen more corruption and evil in the last 4 years than I thought possible. I'm under investigation by Elections Alberta for holding town halls to talk about politics and get people involved. And I have a wife and one son, another child on the way that I'm should be welcoming into the world any day now. And I'm here because my friend Jason invited me, and I like to talk about politics.
Lisa.
Well, that's pretty awesome. And you're sitting on screen, you're sitting next to a politician. So I hope you don't hate me.
We'll see.
But I do agree with you with all the corruption, whether it's municipal, provincial, or federal politics, there is an awful lot of corruption going on, a lot of collusion. There's you called it right there. But I'm Lisa Robinson, Councillor Lisa Robinson, from the city of Pickering here in Ontario, which is on the Toronto-Durham border. So I'm right there. I have not been paid for almost 2 years in my duties. I continue working and I'm not getting paid because they keep on saying that I keep on breaching the code of conduct for speaking my mind, for speaking the truth, for calling out the corruption and all the perceived, I'm going to say alleged corruption that I am seeing and witnessing. For example, for some reasons why I have lost my pay is when I tried to bring forward a notice of motion. Now, remember, these motions, I never even got them to the floor. Okay. So I tried to bring forward a notice of motion that we only fly government flags on government buildings other than, the poppy and the veterans flag. Seems pretty normal. I also tried to bring forward a notice of motion that every man, woman, boy, and girl has the right to use a biological bathroom, or they could go ahead and choose to use the universal bathroom change room, which would be inclusive of all genders and families. And then I tried to bring forward a notice of motion that we should be putting age restrictions on Pride events and on Drag Queen Storytime. So because of those motions, my fellow councillors lied. They put in complaints to the Integrity Commissioner saying that I wanted to get rid of the Pride flag, that I did want there to be like a family universal bathroom, like complete lies, but to try and make me look like I'm a raging racist and like, I'm transphobic, I'm homophobic. And it worked because like, the newspapers all run with that. Right. So I'm constantly losing my pay. Another thing that I lost my pay for was because I said, if I was to become mayor, I would use the strong mayor's powers for good. I would go into City Hall. I would get rid of the CAO, the city solicitor, and a bunch of the directors, because corruption does start at the top. I said I would tear it down, build it back up from the bottom, and give the City Hall back to the people. And I lost 3 months' pay for saying that because they said, oh my God, she's harassing and it's intimidating. So I actually lost 3 months' pay for that one sentence alone. They, on November the 5th, I put a post for Guy Fawkes, the remember the 5th of November, the gunpowder treason and plot. I see no reason why the gunpowder treason should ever be forgot, because V for Vendetta is one of my favorite movies. So I posted that. They tried to have me charged as if I was going to blow up Parliament. Like they literally tried to have me charged. And on those first 3 motions that I mentioned to you at the very, very beginning, they actually wanted to have me charged with a hate crime. It's absolutely unbelievable. Every time I go on a podcast like tonight, someone's going to see it and they're going to say, oh my God, that person on the podcast said something not nice. So we're going to take away Councillor Robinson's pay for it, even if I don't say that, because that's already happened when I've been on the podcast. So that's me in a nutshell,
Sorry, Lisa, you might lose some money tonight.
Pardon?
You might lose some money tonight. I'm sorry, because I say a lot of dumb stuff. So sorry. Sorry.
And they'll try and tag it to me. And the crazy thing is, too, is when I was on this podcast, yes, you know what, the person said some stuff that wasn't nice, but he followed up with, but don't do that because it's illegal. And of course, in the Integrity Commission report, they don't say the whole truth. They don't say that I went back on his show the next week and condemned, that I don't condone violence of any kind. And the thing was, I wasn't even on the show when he said something. He also made a disclaimer saying it was his own words, but he took me off the show. So I'm in the back waiting room and I wasn't even on the show when he said these things. And still I lost 3 months pay because of it. So that's what I'm dealing with. And that's municipal politics for you. It is corrupt. They do whatever they can because I think they're afraid of me. They're afraid of me speaking the truth. They don't like it. So they do everything they possibly can to ruin me. And that's what they've done because they've taken away my pay for 2 years. Single mom with a mortgage. And, I got to put food on the table for my child. It's absolutely disgraceful. And just last month, because there was crowdfunding from a couple of years ago that only got like $13,000 in it. They're now saying I broke the code of conduct because they're calling it a single source. So as a politician, you have to claim any gifts or benefits that you're getting. They're calling it a single source. And now they took away more money than I actually received from crowdfunding because that's the kind of people that they are. So that's who I'm dealing with.
Oh my God!
Right?
That's just
it's not even half. It's not even a quarter. It's just like a little snippet of everything that's gone on. The draconian measures are absolutely terrible. I don't want to take too long, but if you just let me say the draconian measures that's happening in municipal politics, and when it happens in Pickering, it starts happening in other municipalities because it's like the domino effect. So, for example, they dropped delegation times from people coming to speak in our chambers from 10 minutes to 5 minutes. They now do not allow any people that live there, don't live there, anyone coming into our chambers to record any parts of the meeting. And now the media can't even record unless council gives them 2/3 majority vote to allow them. And what's even more disturbing is that before, anyone could come to the chamber and speak about any topic they wanted to, as long as they gave 10 days advance notice of an agenda so people would know. Now, if you want to talk about a topic, you have to get a mover, a seconder, and you have to get 2/3 of votes to allow you to speak. So if we don't like the topic you're going to speak about, you are never going to be able to stand in your chambers and have your speak, because they just will not allow it. And here they are on Veterans Day that just passed, and they're all talking about democracy, this, that, and the other. And meanwhile, they are quite hypocritical. They are all hypocrites. It's absolutely disgusting, and it made me sick to my stomach sitting there at a Remembrance Day the other day, listening to them speak when they are doing this to the people and doing the very thing that our soldiers sacrificed their lives for. Sickening.
Yeah.
Jeff Evely, seems like it's your birthday. Is that accurate?
Oh, yeah.
Somebody wished you a happy birthday. Don't you just love when followers better late than never? So
thanks.
You don't look you don't look a day over 50. Good for you, Jeff. I have no idea how old you are. I just
45.
45.
No, 47.
So, small introduction. Outside of walking in the woods, who is Jeff Evely?
20-year veteran, Canadian Armed Forces, tours in Iraq and Afghanistan, 4 years working with NORAD in the States. I got out in 2021 and basically did a combat role out of the military and into the freedom movement. And since then, I've been arrested 5 times, 4 related to mandates, and once for punching a 6'8" steaming pile of Trantiva garbage in his smart mouth. And I did the convoy, Rolling Thunder, James Top, the 1 Million March for Children. I was involved in organizational capacity in all of them, in some organizational capacity, varying. And that's a wonderful picture. Did you bid on that? And I ran in the 2025 election for MP with the People's Party. Most recently, I took a walk in the woods and I got a $28,872.50 fine out here in Nova Scotia. We have 2 judicial reviews, one in my private interest, one in the public interest, JCCF and CCF, respectively. I think that's about as good as a shot as we're ever going to get. Just went viral again. I don't know. It might not be. It was close the last time I looked at it, but it's with a clip from the O'Keefe interview that I did about my journey into the woods. I think he was just interested in knowing kind of more about me, like, why are you the kind of guy that does that sort of thing? I went down to West Palm Beach and talked to him for an hour, and there's a clip where I share my experience with the maniacs at the Children's Hospital of Eastern Ontario, basically stalking my daughter while I was deployed to Iraq, and telling her, you're 16 now, so you can come on in for your sex change because you don't need your dad's permission anymore. So that was a nightmare. And I told Pierre Poilievre all about it before he went on and voted for the conversion therapy bill that would jail any parent for 5 years if they try to take their kid to a counselor to get talk therapy to help them feel comfortable in their natural body instead of going straight to the surgeries. So that's a 5-year jail sentence for any parent that does that, by the way. But and then he went ahead and voted for it twice. So so that made some waves too. And I think that's about it for me. That's still waving, I think. And that's still very making a lot of waves.
Mr. Jason.
Well,
that's what you tend to do, Jeff.
Apparently, I have a lot of interesting friends. I got to tell you that. Listening to these intros, I got some interesting friends. And I just want to pause and thank and say hello to Mayor Ash, who's probably watching from Pickering. Say hello to Elections Alberta. I'm sure you guys are watching as well. And Premier Tim Houston, how you doing? I'm pretty sure you're watching as well. Because the type of people that I hang out with are the people that stand up and fight hard. And they fight so hard that sometimes they find themselves on a hill. And they got to go ahead and battle their way out of that one. So I'm pretty honored to have these guests. And I just got off with Stockwell. He's jumping on in a minute now. I'm Jason Lavigne, host of The Lavigne Show. and I do interviews and podcasts, and I've been doing this for a few years now. And I get out there trying to meet all the types of people where they have stories to share. They're fighting hard, and they understand what tyranny is, and they're fighting against it. And some of my favorite people are on this panel right now, including you, Nico, because if we don't do these kind of conversations, Canada will just continue to fall asleep and slip further into that. The upside down flag as your background is a perfect representation of where we're at right now. So I'm really glad that this group came together on a Saturday to share some of these stories about this budget. And I just got back from an event. I got invited by Jim Kerr, who's covering the Universal Ostrich Farm. He too has been charged. So again, my friends are all got charges or criminal or whatever going on. But these are the good type of people. He's here in Drayton Valley. So we went and met, and there was a good crowd there that showed up. Just spent some time with Patriot, who's fighting really hard. And great news for all of Alberta, Jim Kerr is moving here, along with a whole bunch of other people who are leaving various prison cells and moving their way to Alberta. Lisa, you got to make that move soon.
I know.
Jeff, we'd love to see you out here.
I got to be near the ocean, boys. And I mean, if we all move to Alberta, then who's going to save Nova Scotia?
Fair enough.
How can men die better than facing fearful odds for the ashes of their fathers and the temples of their gods?
I mean, I moved back to the place of my birth to dig my boots into the ground that I love and make my final stand against global tyranny. So,
well, Fort Jeff will keep everything very secure over there. And yeah, Jeff, we may have to go there to escape some other things at some point. But right now I'm fighting hard for Alberta. One of the things I'm working on is the new Republic of Alberta. This is something that I'm fighting very hard on because I believe that's the only way to save what we have here. But things like the CFIA cracking down on farmers, we got the Supreme Court cracking down on ostriches, but leaving the pedophiles alone. Definitely don't want to be part of the system anymore. And the budget 2025, or the deficit spending, is what we're going to get into tonight, because this is all smoke and mirrors from a global banker who is moving things from here to there and everywhere and making it seem like we're not as poor as we really are, but we are really in bad shape here. And he's probably very pleased. So to the CSIS agents and RCMP watching right now, hey, good to see you.
Hi.
Glad you're not killing ostriches tonight, and maybe we'll move on to some other things.
Oh.
But thanks for having me, Nico. I really enjoy these evenings with you, and I'm glad we have a panel tonight. And Stockwell should jump on any minute now.
But Jason,
Well-
could I just mention, did you know the CFIA that they're also not going to do anything about the cloned meat that we have now?
It's already on the shelves, unlabeled. Yep.
Right? And they're doing absolutely nothing about it. Health Canada said it's okay, and the CFIA, they're doing absolutely nothing about it. But after what they did with the ostriches and the healthy ostriches and just murdering them, I don't expect them to do anything for anyone. I can't.
Well,
you can never trust them again.
To just let you know, they actually did do something. What they did was they killed 200 cattle beef, took them out of the food supply.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Stockwell. Thank you very much for joining us. They took them out of the food supply, and now we're going to have a lot more cloned meat
Can
sources.
you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you. We can hear you.
Let's try this. Can you hear me now?
Yep, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
Okay, I got you guys.
Excellent.
Here we go.
Sorry about that. How are we doing? Are we all we're tuned in all right?
We're very good. We hear you great, and we were just finishing the
We're
intro,
cute.
so you came at the perfect time.
Perfect.
Yeah, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, Stockwell, man with no
So-
introduction. Go
Hi,
ahead.
Stockwell Day here. Good to be with you guys.
And can you just give a little history for people who are just meeting you for the first time?
You want history?
Oh boy, here we
A
go.
little bit.
A short history.
I was
Yeah.
going to say how long
Give us
the
a
show.
3-sentence bio.
Well, let's see. Former leader of the official opposition for Canada, served in Stephen Harper's government as Minister of Public Safety, responsible for everything from terrorism to bad guys to CSIS, also Minister of International Trade. Before that, I was Minister of Finance for the government of Alberta. And more importantly, I answer to Valerie, my wife. And we have 15 grandkids and lots of stuff going on all the time. I still operate Stockwell Day Connects Limited, And I have a podcast that I'm happy to talk about and advertise freely. Stockwell Day-to-Day News. What else would you like to know?
That's a good
I think
introduction
that's
right
good.
there. Yep. And then Nico, who are you? We haven't seen you before.
I'll start by saying what I told Lisa earlier. I'm a professional asshole. I think this is the main thing. But I'm a podcaster. I'm a political analyst, and yeah, I criticize the left and the right, but yet I try to bring them together. So I have quite the quite the issue to fight in Canada because I'm really trying to bridge the gap between the left and the right. That's why I run the Political Orphans with a lefty. I'm a Christian conservative that records with a anti-woke liberal every day, trying to find common ground between the left and the right. So that's my main thing, is try to make people understand that we are more alike than we are different, and the war is not left versus right, but the war is top versus bottom. So that's what I do. And just I'm gonna put that out just because Lisa was talking about clone meats, but I have the food professor Sylvain Charlebois on the show on Monday to speak about that. Like he's been in Parliament many times as a food expert, and he's gonna come on the show to speak about what is clone meats, what is the garbage that they're trying to sell us without labeling it. And I also have a lawyer, Sean Buckley, on Thursday to talk about the fact that the labels, it's been a while since Health Canada's have the power to not put ingredients on labels. That's something we don't realize because we hear about clone meats and like, oh no, they're not going to tell us that it's clone meat. Yeah, they do that already with a lot of food. So I think Canadians need to be educated on those two, but absolutely scary times to be alive. And we'll take it to the main question of the day, because I got some little numbers here. So because the question of the day is simple: can Canada survive the 2025 budget, or is it too late? Because if we look at the facts right now, the Liberals are declaring that it's going to be a $78.3 billion deficit for 2025-2026, but they call another 90 billion, it's closer to 94 billion, investments. We all know an investment means you're supposed to make money, so it ain't an investment, it's another deficit that's going to be spread over the next 5 years. So we're talking about the biggest deficit budget in Canadian history by a mile. So can we survive this budget? Can we survive Marx Carney? Can we survive the Marxism that is going after Canada right now? And as a former finance minister, I will throw the question to Stockwell Day to start us off with his opinion.
Well, sure, Canada will survive, but will Canada survive as a flourishing, healthy person, or as a person increasingly requiring life support? And I say that in all seriousness because governments cannot continue to rack up debt and deficit without increasingly paying the price. And the way governments pay the price, governments have to go to bond markets to get money to keep running when they're running deficits and when they are running further into debt. And the more you get into debt, the more the bank or the debt markets, the bond markets say to you, well, you're getting riskier and riskier, so we're going to charge you higher and higher rates to borrow that money. That means you have to keep raising taxes. That means the cost on people on everything we do gets higher and higher. So this is my concern. The other concern that I have in relation to your good question is that anytime a government can find an excuse to go to the people with an excuse for racking up the debt and deficit, that's very dangerous territory. And this particular federal government is running up the excuse that we've got this trade war going on with the United States, which we do to a degree in terms of the tariff war. I'm not in favor of tariffs, never have been. They don't usually work. But that is giving the government, rather than tough negotiating and rather than seeing if there isn't something we can do while still maintaining our full integrity as a nation, rather than tough negotiating, we've resorted to public name calling, taking out ads, slamming the U.S., doing everything possible to aggravate the situation. So is Canada going to survive? I believe Canada will survive, but in increasingly rough shape.
That's a very fair point because, of course, something's going to be here, but how healthy will we be? David Parker, your first vote was Stockwell Day, so we may as well have you follow him on that question.
Yeah, my very first vote at 14 was for Stockwell Day as the leader of the Alliance Party. My friend Laura
Thank you for
Whitten.
that. Thank you for that.
My friend Laura Whitten, who Stockwell may remember or not, was one of his main volunteers in Red Deer at the time.
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
So she got me involved in politics, and I've been involved for a while, obviously. I have to unfortunately disagree with you, sir. I don't think Canada is going to survive, and I'll lay out my rationale for why. I completely agree with your financial analysis of the budget and your laying out of how bond markets work. I think we're headed in the direction that Argentina faced when they embraced socialism, which was a century of poverty and civil war and unrest that ended in absolute, it ended in Mealy getting elected, but there's still 23% inflation. I mean, I want people on this that are watching this to imagine 23% inflation. Just imagine it for a moment. That's where Canada is inevitably headed. We just ran a 3% of our GDP, not 3% of the government budget, 3% of Canada's GDP deficit. That was the deficit of this year. Not only that, the government has now claimed one of their biggest liabilities, the Canadian Pension Plan, as an asset in order to reduce their debt and be able to borrow more. They are reporting CPP, which is a liability to the pensioners of Canada, as an asset. This is a government that has completely lost its mind when it comes to fiscal responsibility. This is not a five-alarm fire. The canary in the coal mine is dead. It's done. It's over. The fiscal future of Canada doesn't exist. You cannot get out of this. We are at record low interest rates. 2.2% right now, or 2.5. I don't remember if they lowered it again. We are not going to see this continue. We cannot see this continue because we're a fiscal mess. We're now listing our liabilities as assets. The PBO came out with a report today. That's the Parliamentary Budget Officer, saying that they're underreporting the deficit because they're listing, as you pointed out, Nico, of the investment as not a deficit. They're underreporting it by 30 billion, is what the Parliamentary Budget Officer is saying. So we are in a fiscal mess. This is the worst budget that has ever been presented to the Canadian people, and it's not even close. Even the COVID budget was better than this. This is a catastrophe. And when Albertans particularly, and that's who I'm speaking to primarily, look at this, they can only realize that if we continue on the course of being a part of Canada, we will be impoverished. Period. End of story. There's no question. We cannot get out of this mess by hoping that the rest of Canada will stop losing their minds, particularly around things like immigration. But even more so, the Alberta problem is a problem of anti-development. People are no longer interested in allowing Alberta to get its product to market. We have David Eby, the Premier of British Columbia, basically stating that he will do everything in his power, which is quite substantial, to make sure that we never get a pipeline. We have Danielle Smith moving the goalposts again and again and again, saying that she's just waiting for Carney to give her the deal. We have new projects being announced every month by the federal government. None of them are in Alberta. It's over. It's done. If we stay in this country, we will become like Argentina. So I think the only question that any Albertan asking or watching this needs to ask themselves is whether they want to be poor. It's Argentina or Dubai. Those are your choices. Choose wisely.
Well, I would like to remind David here that Ottawa is seeking a permanent parliamentary budget officer with tact and discretion. So they're trying to change that guy because they didn't like what he had to say. And that came out this week as well. Now, Councillor Lisa Robinson, one way for government to save money is to withhold salary to councillors. So maybe you could be responsible for helping get us back on track. But what are your thoughts about this budget?
Maybe I could. That would be awesome if I could. But honestly, Canada has to survive the budget. I mean, we have no choice but to. We can't all just run and go somewhere, because honestly, right now it's happening all around the world right now. But with his budget, the deficit is massive, the debt is rising, the growth is weak, and the government is betting everything on assumptions that may or may not come true. right? We're not collapsing tomorrow, but we're running out of runway really, really fast here in Canada. Carney, he changed the meaning of the word investment, right? He took normal government spending and he changed it and said that programs and subsidies and tax breaks, day-to-day costs, are now called investments. And that's how he's hiding the over $90 billion. That's not a real investment. And Canadians need to understand, how severe this is. He also hid the real size of the deficit, right? He was just, because he's relabeling everything. And, I see that in the city of Pickering as well. Just for a quick reference, is like the city of Pickering with all of their different accounts. They just constantly change the names of them so they can move money around. And then, they don't really have, well, I don't want to say what, I mean, I'm sure everyone can understand what I'm saying when I say that they just like to move money around and then they can use it for basically whatever they want. Carney also, you can clearly define what operating spending meant, right? And I mean, that's a huge red flag. It's a huge warning sign for everybody. So, I mean, if you can avoid defining certain terms, then like I'm saying with the city of Pickering, you know what? You have the ability to move money around however you want. It's like a shell game. And Canadians will not be able to keep up. They'll be able to do basically whatever they want. And that's what he's heading for right now. I mean, it's not transparency. It's definitely a loophole in this budget that he has created. As we know, the operating budget, they're saying that they're going to balance the budget by 2028, but there's only a 7% chance that they will be able to do that plan is actually going to work, which means that there's a 93% chance that is going to fail. And I'm telling you, if I was to I don't think anyone here would get into a plane if we knew that there was a 93% chance that plane is going to go down, right? So, I mean, I don't know why Canadians are being so complicit right now. I mean, there should be more of an uproar right now, seeing what this budget is. He's borrowing huge amounts for day-to-day spending. We all know that it's not for infrastructure. It's for regular expenses. And I don't know. He's trying to make the debt look better than it is. And I don't think it's fooling anyone. But then again, it might be fooling most Canadians if they're not paying attention. And a lot of Canadians don't really pay a whole lot of attention because they are busy with their day-to-day lives. They trust the government. They trust that the government is going to do no bad, that they are protecting their citizens. But as we've seen for over the last 5 years, this is not what's been happening. And, when he starts using those big buzzwords that he uses, like generational investments and nation building, is going to do a sea of change or transformational growth. Canadians eat that stuff up and they don't get to the bottom of and really looking at the numbers and really looking to see just how corrupt our government is.
Well, thank you for sharing that, because they're going to start waking up and learning that tonight.
I sure hope so.
Jeff, so according to the 2025 budget, over the next 4 years, Veteran Affairs will be required to find $4.23 billion in saving targets. And at the same time, the Canadian military will rely on an army of public servants to boost its ranks by 300,000. What are your takes on that?
Actually, yeah, that's right where I was going to go, because they cut the veterans budget, like you said, by 4.23 billion, but there's 141 billion in new spending. So the only reason they did that is because they hate us. The Army, this is another one of these accounting tricks, is what he's doing with the Army of Public Servants. Well, it's obviously not going to work. It is voluntary, by the way. They're trying to get people recruited into this force, apparently, where you do a week's worth of training, and you get firearms, driving, and UAV training. So you learn all that in a week. I mean, usually when we train people on C7s on the firearms, on the weapons, because they're weapons in the military, but that's over the course of basic training. Like you have to learn all these drills for clearing, jams and things like this, because that happens. It's frequent too, especially if you're talking about the Canadian military and the stuff that they're issuing us. So it's just totally implausible. Only somebody who's never had a hard moment in their life, like Mark Carney, could possibly think that you can just kind of move people around on a spreadsheet like that, and it's going to work. But I think what he's doing, what he's trying to do, because it's clearly a rubber stamp, like he's not training soldiers, and it's an accounting trick. And I think the added benefit here is that now he gets to count those people's salaries as meeting our NATO commitments. So getting that spending up to be able to kind of defraud the United States of this idea that we're actually contributing to NATO. So yeah, it's just rotten, I think, across the board. And also I would add that Canada actually ended on 18 February 2022. Don't forget about that. The whether or not we're going to go bankrupt, I think is really anybody's guess. I would say I'm not panicking. Of course, if current trends continue, it's not going to take long at all. But if we could, like on a dime, we're sitting on $33.2 trillion worth of natural resources. All we have to do is turn it on, and we'll be rich as astronauts. Like Norway did it. They have, they have 2 trillion in the bank right now in Norway. So, and all they did was just turn on their natural resources. So on a dime, I think we could turn it around. It's just a matter of, a political revolution that's very clearly required. We need to clean house. Everybody's got to go. The liberals, conservatives, across the board, they were all in it together, and they still are. And there's nothing but progressives right now. There's no right-wing perspectives in the Commons at all. I think the conservatives reverted to their progressive roots because they were the progressive conservatives in the 90s, and that's what they reverted to after the Harper years. And they decided to go for Justin Trudeau with Blandrew Scheer, and then it was Blandrew Scheer without the dimples, Aaron O'Toole, and everybody was always asking, when's Pierre going to get a shot at it? And then he finally did. And, to his credit, I hate Pierre, but to his credit, he does treat the left-wing media like a left-wing media, and that's kind of what everybody's been waiting for somebody to do. I think we need a political revolution. We got to clean house and turn on the natural resources, and we'll be fine. But in terms of healing the nation, that can begin, I think, probably somewhere around 2030.
All right, and then my kind of comments on this one, Nico, is I'm very worried because Chrysler Freeland stepped down after a $60 billion deficit spending budget, and here we are, way higher than that. There's a lot of Canadians online when I posted, while they moved the CPP from liability to an asset, they called me a liar. I had to prove it to them because they're just not paying attention. And they don't see how a global banker who knows how to work the numbers and then, display it and present it could trick them. Everybody knows that criminal organizations have 2 books. There's the real books, and then there's the books that they share with everybody else. And I do think we're in a lot of trouble. What I like to look at is what happened to Greece when it got into trouble, got an International Monetary Fund bailout, and then what happens when you service that debt and you default in it. They come and provide the guidance to get you back on track. So they slashed the pension fund. They had the highest unemployment ever at the time, and they went and cut basically all services. So Canadians who enjoy the dependency of the government now should be paying very close attention to what can happen if the government goes bankrupt, because one of the first things that happens is all those dependencies get stopped. So I am concerned. Here in Alberta, we certainly have a prosperous future that we're looking at. We're fighting hard to get pipelines and energy to flow as well. And what you said there, Jeff, is, we're sitting on a ton of natural resources. And if only we can turn it on, we'll be in good shape. In conjunction with the budget, though, we've got the major project list, and we're not on it. Alberta is not on it. So it doesn't look like they want to turn on any of that income for the rest of Canada. And maybe Alberta is going to have to do something separately in order to ensure that we don't go down with the entire ship. I have some of the optimism that Stockwell has, because I do want to believe that Canada can be okay, but it's going to be very, very sick before it gets there. And hopefully nobody tries to booster us into being well, because that won't work either. And I definitely would not take that flight, Lisa, a 93% crash rate. I wouldn't do it. So Air Carney is not going to be taken off anytime soon. And Jeff, there is an astronaut in Canada's future. At least our ex-prime minister seems to be dating one. So maybe there will be some astronauts. But on that note, Nico, what are your thoughts? Do you think we're going to be in some trouble here?
We already are. We already are. It's just that people are not paying attention. You know, I talk about this all the time, but if you look at the people that are suffering, it's everybody except the boomers. And I'm sorry, Stock, I'm sorry. I apologize, but I bash the boomers quite often. I'm sorry. But they seem to be the only age group that don't really worry about what's going on. Like just today, I was reading an article that was saying that the boycott on traveling to the US is still on. And I'm like, are you guys fucking crazy? It's not still on. Nobody can afford to travel. The average Canadian pays more than 42.3% of taxes on his income with all over taxes. I made a list. We have more than 100 taxes in Canada when it comes to municipal, provincial, and federal. More than 100 tax. I did the calculation. The average Canadian pays between 90% to 103% of their salary on daily necessities like food, cell phone, having a roof over their head, paying for their car, sending one single child to high school, not university, one child to high school. And if you count just those normal things that we take for granted, like add internet to that, we're looking at 90 to 103% of our salaries. And that is based on 120 or 130,000 household income. So we're not talking about people that are considered poor. We're talking about the average everyday Canadian. So no matter what the budget says, we're already screwed. But I don't know what it's going to take for people to wake up, because that's the biggest concern that I have is we're at a point where we're bleeding. And it's not, it looks like we're bleeding and we're pointing to the big bad orange man to the south and saying it's all his fault that Canada is in the situation that we're in right now, instead of looking at the people that are really responsible for this. And as you guys were talking, I just put a list together because I posted this and this went viral on Instagram. But here's a list for the people out there that are not paying attention. Mark Carney's Liberals are destroying our relationship with the US. They're lying about the real cost of their budget. They're working on getting a majority without an election. They're continuing the past 10 years of abuse on Alberta's oil and gas. They're going after our guns. They're trying to pass censorship and surveillance bill C2, C8, C9, C63. They're going after our farmers, ostriches. They're allowing land grabs, Richmond, BC. They're allowing clone meats to be sold. And the Senate, as we speak, just finished the second reading on universal basic income. This is Canada within the last week and a half or so. This is where we are. And I wanted to talk about the budget, but four of you mentioned Canadian. I don't know what it's going to take for Canadians to wake up or what they need to wake up. You all made the point pretty much that Canadians need to wake up. So considering what I just said right now, I apologize for sensitive ears, but I swear, what the fuck is it going to take for Canadians to wake the fuck up?
Who you want to throw that to? Start with Stockwell.
Oh, David is already pulling his beer, so go for it, bro.
Look, they're not going to. I'm sorry to say it. They are already overwhelmed. So 8 million Canadians will die over the next 20 years because they're over the age of 65 for no other reason than for old age. And during those next 20 years, those 8 million Canadians that will die will be primarily the white old stock Canadians that made up this nation. What will happen after that is a continued increase in immigration because we have tons of land and tons of resources, as Jeff pointed out. But we won't be Canada anymore. We will be a balkanized and fractionized state of multi-ethnic enclaves. We already see that in Brampton. We already see it in Surrey. It's already beginning to happen here in Alberta, in the northeast of Calgary and the southeast of Edmonton. So if you think that the Canada that you love and you dreamed of and you lived in and you believe in and that you are patriotic towards, that will not exist in 20 years. Period. End of story. Math never lies. You're not going to have the Canada that, the kids played hockey on the street and we all kind of shared basic values. You're going to live in a multi-ethnic, balkanized, I believe, highly federated, or America's just going to take Canada, which is a highly likely outcome as well. So when you say, are they going to wake up? Well, even if they do, who's going to fight? The 8 million boomers? They're not going to fight. Our people are no longer having children. So particularly old stock Canadians are not having children. 39% of children born this year in Canada were born to women who immigrated here. It's not going to be the Canada. So when you say, what will it take? It's over. The old Canada is dead and gone. It is not coming back. We may be able to create something new. That's the project that I'm working on here in Alberta. I encourage everyone across Canada to realize that there is no going back. We cannot return to what was. If we want to make something new, that's what I'm going to be working on. But to pretend like the thing that was Canada can remain with the fiscal complete, not irresponsibility, fiscal malpractice that is occurring in our federal government right now, the immigration malpractice that is happening in our government right now, and the war on the values that built this nation, which is the thing that I care about the most and the thing that is most being attacked. One of the things that wasn't mentioned was the Supreme Court ruling that struck down mandatory minimums for the possession of child pornography of 1 year. It was only 1 year in prison if you're in possession of children being used for sex. That's the country you live in. If you want to tell me that this is something we want to survive, well, I have no desire for that to survive. And whatever comes next, it's not going to be what Canada was.
Wow. Yeah. That's it's been a tough week with the Supreme Court. There's some more decisions there that were difficult to listen to. That's why I certainly would like to see a different Alberta that's not under it. But Stockwell, you mentioned that we're going to be sick, and Dave is talking about malpractice and on life support. So is there a way to get healthier after this kind of budget? What's the next 5 years look like? And is there a way to turn this around and wake people up?
Well, that's a great question, and I agree with all of the diagnoses that we just heard. Diagnosing the patient is one thing, and the road to recovery is another. The road to recovery, in my view, is going to be and has to be a political one. Let me give you an example. Back just before 2011, we were looking at the threat of an ongoing NDP government in British Columbia. Christy Clark got elected as leader of the provincial Liberal Party. And it was the party that all polls showed the only party that had any chance. And as a matter of fact, the Liberals provincially and the Conservatives provincially, it looked like if the Conservatives stayed alive, though that was questionable, that the vote would be split once again and the NDP would get in. So here we had a situation, there's a number of us. I was asked to throw in my 2 cents worth. And what we did was we identified the fact that, look, the vote is going to be split. If we can win, we looked at the overall number of seats, and we identified that there were 19 seats. This is back in 2011, 19 seats that would probably be settled within about 10% of the vote. That's what the win would be. And that the provincial Conservatives, though they were appearing to have no chance to win, they in fact could make the difference if their vote dropped and that vote went to the Liberals. You could possibly win. The target was to win 19 seats. At the time, Christy Clark and others, as we were looking at what do we do to keep an NDP, a socialist government out. And it's not a time politics is not a time for purity. Sorry if that sounds harsh, and I'm not talking about the moral issues, the very important ones that have just been raised here. But it's a time where we look at a situation, we say, what can work? So part of what I was doing was I went around the province, sometimes with the Christy Clark, sometimes with others, and I was asking provincial conservatives, not federal, provincial conservatives to please vote Liberal. That was a tall order, but we presented the very grim future of yet another term of NDP. A lot of people, a lot of my friends who were federal conservatives said, "What are you doing?" I said, "We're trying to save the province, basically." Even my mother was saying, "What are you doing?" Calling me, telling people to vote provincial Liberal. Anyway, the plan worked. It wasn't just me; it was a lot of people. We didn't win 19 seats, but we won 15 of them, and that was enough to get a majority. And to present a perfect government, no. To present one that was philosophically pure in all aspects, no. But one that was immeasurably better than where the NDP were taking us, yes. And so the same challenge, we're faced with the same challenge. By the way, we kind of repeated that in a reverse way in the provincial election just a couple of years ago in BC. Same thing was identified. The previous provincial Liberals, which changed their name, that was really helpful, and the Conservatives were going to go neck and neck again. And with John Rustad as a new leader, and we kind of took the same tack. We identified the number of ridings that had to be won. We put a lot of pressure on the then leader of the opposition, Kevin Falcon, and I'll just say I give him great credit. He realized where we were headed with another NDP term, and we just about pulled off a miracle there with the Conservative Party in 2 years going from almost 0 seats and 2% in the polls to coming within 2 seats of knocking off the NDP. I think we could have won it, but that's another story for another day. So the same thing federally. Right now, we're looking at about a 25-seat difference in terms of Liberals and Conservatives. Those seats have been identified. When you add up the votes, the differences in those 25 seats, and I recognize, you're saying status quo for the rest, but there will be some movement. And you really get to work politically in those ridings. And I'm talking the hard work, the door-to-door work that has to go on for years. It's the way, as David Parker at the age of 14 would remember, is the way I did it in Red Deer and the way others do it. It's the hard work because you're up against a mainstream media that is culturally Marxist, and the undecided vote is mostly affected by the mainstream media. If you can move a certain percentage of that undecided, depending on the election you're going into, it can be 5 to 9% of the overall vote. If you can move them, a bigger percentage of them from voting status quo, which would be Liberal, to voting Conservative, you can turn this thing around. It's been done before, it can be done again, but it's hard work. Everything that each one of us has said here, that each of you said, is right. Anger doesn't win. Hard work wins. A vision to how you can do it. Targeted, selected ridings. It can be done. Everybody's saying, well, they look at the polls that the pollsters are doing on Pierre Poilievre, and they compare that to Carney, and there seems to be quite a gap there. But the gap between Liberal and Conservatives now, voting intention, actually, the federal Conservatives are ahead by about 1%. That varies from day to day. And I realize if we get into an election, the mainstream media will go into full-on panic mode, as they always do, and try and terrify Canadians. But we work hard, we work smart, we target those ridings. It can be done, and I only say that because it's been done before. The answer is political, and it's hard work, and it has started, but it needs to be starting with more intensity than it has been. It can be done. Basically, there's no choice. We either do that or we go completely moribund. Somebody mentioned Argentina. Argentina's still there, unfortunately, and for decades in terrible economic shape. So nations don't go away, unfortunately, when they become bankrupt. They become taken over by the International Monetary Fund. They have to take on policies that are abhorrent to conservatives. And so they struggle on as very, very sick patients. I don't want Canada to continue on as a very sick patient. I don't like the direction we're going. Mark Carney is delighted to try to have us politically aligned closer to China, which is beyond insanity. But mainstream media, again, supports him in that. and the undecided are affected by the mainstream media. So it's a matter of getting these truths out and working very hard in targeted selective ridings. We've done it before. It can be done.
And one of the ways we can get the truth out is to watch Stockwell Day by Day podcast. You'll get
That'll
some
help.
good information. I think it will help for sure. And it's great to see so many podcasters coming together in a mashup like this, because this is kind of how we get this message out. Lisa, let's jump to you now. So Stockwell's saying you got to raise the conservative sales, change 25 ridings. He's proven this model before in BC. It worked to stave off the radical NDP Marxist government, socialist government. And is that something that you believe in? Potentially having someone like you as a mayor through an election. Is this some of the targets that you think might help Pickering and other places in Canada?
Yeah, I definitely Stockwell Day has really hit the nail on the head with that, because that's exactly what we do need. And we need people to start paying attention. I mean, I can't stress that enough, is that people need to start paying attention. They need to see that the media is not being truthful. They're not being honest. They're not giving all the candidates the same time, and because they want to see, it pushed a certain way. And I think that's very unfair. And a lot of people just don't seem to see that. If I could just tell you quickly about something that happened in Pickering just recently, just to show how much and how the media does not report what they should be reporting. We had a meeting the other week, and it was at 1:00 in the afternoon, which, you would think a meeting should be after hours where people could actually attend. It was at 1:00 in the afternoon. And in that meeting, we decided that we were going to spend $266 million on a recreation complex to go into just North Pickering here, into a place called Seton that is only 30% built out. Now, with that, we basically, in that meeting, we spent $1.4 million per minute at this meeting. Now, I had asked the question, I'm going to go back for a second. They said that they did a survey. We have a population, so they say, because we got strong mayor's powers, we have a population of 100,000. They did a survey, which 3,500 people filled out. Out of those 3,500, 500 of them were children from the local high school. The other 3,000 members, I asked a question. I said, did that survey, did it happen to mention that if we were to spend $266 million on this project, were people notified that their taxes are going to go up 11.71% on this one project alone? And of course, the answer was no. Now, I had also lost pay because I said surveys can be skewed and that they're not honest. And this perfectly had proven my point. But in saying that, it's the media. Do you think the media picked up on that? There was nothing about it in the media. At this point, when that meeting took place just a couple of weeks ago, City of Pickering is $5 million in debt. By January the 1st, it is going to be $57 million in debt. In less than 415 days from today, the City of Pickering is going to be $331 million in debt. And that's only if we don't spend any more money on anything that is not already allocated in the 2026 budget. I mean, we're completely done. And then to the point is that where's the media talking about this? The people of Pickering don't know how much debt we're about to be in. They don't know that the property taxes in 2027 are going to go up 11.71%. And that's on top of, our usual 3.9%. It's on top of the Durham region's portion of taxes that they will also add on. And then again, it's on top of the educational tax as well that's going to be added. it's unbelievable. And these are the people that we are electing into office. And it just goes back to Carney. And like, what he's doing in his budget, how he's hiding it, how he's changing the numbers, because he's changing the lexicon, right? He's misrepresenting everybody. And this is happening in every level of government. And people do need to start waking up and seeing exactly what's happening.
Okay, so that's kind of where the question is how do you wake people up? And Jeff, as I come to you, we saw Pierre, he had potentially a supermajority when Trudeau was still in power before he resigned. And the lowest point in leadership support in Trudeau's term looked like Pierre was just going to walk in with a supermajority. They flipped the guy. They put in Carney. He got the elbows up, the bad man south narrative going. And now, in a recent poll, leadership support, Carney's number 2 in the G7 as the most supported leader of the country, of the G7. So the Liberal Party went from like no support, media, Carney, elbows up, and now he's a popular leader here in Canada. Is there a way to switch that, or is this all a psyop? And as Melissa says, it's all in the media. So how do we do that? There's only so many doors you can knock on. But if the media is pushing the narrative, what do you do, Jeff?
Okay, so like the part about the psyop, I do think that Carney is China's man. I mean, he basically went there last spring in an article in the Telegraph that said that China woos Western investors. And there was Carney standing with all of them. And of course, he's gotten busted with the Chinese Canadian Commerce Council, which is a known United Front group here in Canada. He denied it. And then the pictures came out with him there. And he stands to benefit. I mean, Brookfield is heavily invested in China's green tech. They got sweetheart real estate deals off them in Japan. And they're heavily invested in green tech as well. And so Carney is obviously, he's a green zealot, apparently. I mean, he seemed to favor oil when he was all about oil when he was when he was working for the Bank of Canada. I mean, he went before Commons Committee and said, this is how we need to build Canada. It's by using oil. But then he went over to Britain and became the head of the Bank in England there, and they did a deal with the bank in Beijing, and then Carney becomes Trudeau's close advisor in 2020, writes a book in 2021, and now he's a green zealot. So he's pretty clearly compromised. Of course, the conflict of interest in his stock portfolio alone should be disqualifying, because if Canada goes down, he gets richer. We're never going to get our oil out of the ground with him there, because he's invested in oil in the United States, Brazil, and Nigeria. So that's why he's here. It is to destroy Canada. The art of war got an upgrade in the 90s. It's called unrestricted warfare. And that, they've always been about elite capture. That's the supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without any fighting. So they basically just kind of, turn the government against the people against the government, pit all the different ethnicities and religious groups off one another, and we'll be too busy at each other's throats to really, notice what that man behind the curtain is doing, and kind of stop working together, and the state will implode on its own, and then they can come in and be our saviors, imposing whatever solutions they want. They talk about elite capture is something discussed in The Art of War in the 5th century BC, but in the 90s they were talking about supranational organizations, and they named specifically the IMF, the World Bank, and in their own words, the biggest of them all, the UN. And look at the audit boards on the UN. They're like 60 to 80% Chinese now. So there are 90 million members of the Chinese Communist Party. So everything that seems to be coming out of there is what's hurting us, like their replacement migration doctrine. The IPCC's ridiculous declarations about carbon being a pollutant, and so on and so forth. Like pretty much everything, whether it's their incessant condemnations of Israel or whether it's the carbon is a pollutant thing, it's all for the purpose of weakening us from within and dividing us against our allies. And no closer ally has there ever been in the entire world than the United States and Canada. It's a really historic relationship, actually, because NORAD is the only permanent binational military structure, command structure in the world, in the history of the world. So we're that close of allies. And naturally, they would want us to polarize us against them with something like an elbows up campaign. And that went all the way up to the 2 minutes of hate from 1984. It was just that Trump was Orange Goldstein, and they flash his image on the telescreen, and everybody's expected to kind of just seethe and project all of their anger and pain onto him. And it worked. They ran a fear and hatred campaign, and it worked. Apparently, we're still apes, guys, and we're not out of the woods yet. So But the answer here, really, like, what do we got to do to wake people up? I'm pretty sure the only people that are still sleeping at this point are basically the boomers. And all of this is their fault. This is all their fault. They're the ones running all of our institutions, whether we're talking about, the senior bureaucrats at City Hall that probably, change the rules all the time just to get Lisa. And or whether we're talking about the press, the police forces, the fire services that have utterly collapsed out here in Nova Scotia. And what are the unions saying? They're blaming the bosses. They're blaming management. These people can't do their jobs. They never could. That's what happened to Canada's military in the 90s when they were left unsupervised due to the lower retirement age and the high rate of attrition, like the mandatory retirement at 55. The silent generation would have retired out of there first, and we got the Somalia affair, and we got the first female combat officer raped on her training, and we got the prostitution ring in the North Pole, and so it's degeneracy. They're a bunch of degenerates, and that's all that really happened in the military as they got older, from the Somalia affair to the serial killer colonel to the grab ass and gaslighting generals wagging their fingers, the rest of us, the kind of sexual misconduct that have engaged in their entire careers. Well, they're the Supreme Court justices now that say that pedophilia is not that bad. So we need to talk to our boomers. And I think that it's not only that they're going to devastate Canada. It's done if we don't renegotiate some kind of a deal with the. They're entitled to their entitlements, as Dave Dingwall, the guy who ruined Cape Breton out here, used to say. And the CPP and the OAS and the GIS and all this is all going to bankrupt us when they retire. So they've, devastated common decency in Canada during their tenure as senior bureaucrats at peak institutional power, university professors, the whole shebang, the deans, professors, and so on and so forth. But they and when they retire, the CPP and OAS are basically the reason for mass immigration, by the way. So if we could fix that and not have that demand for mass immigration, that's according to the Fraser Institute in their evaluation. The alternative, by the way, was to raise the retirement age by 2 years. The boomers threw a fit. They painted Harper under the word "stop" at every intersection in the country, and we got Justin Trudeau in there. The original Trudeau maniacs put him there, and they lowered the retirement age back down to 65. Now, everybody else is doing this. Other countries are pinning, like OAS in particular, to life expectancy. CPP is one thing. That's a whole other bag, and they use some creative accounting where they're counting on things like continuous 2% inflation indefinitely. It's like it never goes above 2.4. And they're counting on continuous population growth, and they're projecting that everything is solvent. But if you take away those these unrealized assets, then they actually have over $1 trillion in unfunded liabilities, and that's according to the Fraser Institute again. So. That's why we need the mass immigration. We can fix that. I get the projection and I get the diagnosis for sure, but that's if we don't act. If we do act and we just cut everybody off and stop paying people to lay around in hotels plotting terrorist attacks, then they'll probably just move on to another sucker on their own. A lot of these people are just going to go home As soon as we cut them off and as soon as we start keeping our money to ourselves, then they're just going to leave. Then there are the terrorists that clearly have been brought in as well. That's weaponized migration in the unrestricted warfare that I referenced earlier. It's a book on Amazon, by the way. It's based on leaked Chinese military documents. Yeah, they're not bringing people here to help us. They're bringing people here to mooch and murder. We do need to have some kind of a joint, CBSA, CAF, CSIS, RCMP task force to clean all of that up. And we probably will need some help from the Americans, maybe, as embarrassing as that's going to be for the boomers. But we don't have a military, so I don't know. We're not going to send the bureaucrats for the week's worth of training that included firearms, driving, and UAV flying. It can get cleaned up, and we can turn our natural resources on. And by the early 2030s, we could have higher standards of living. We could have new technologies. It's already starting to happen. It's just we got to get the boomers out of our way and all this climate zealotry and communism, frankly. That's what happened. It's the commie radicals of the 1970s who gave us the FLQ crisis here and the original summer of love in the United States. There were 5 bombs per day being planted in the United States in the 70s because of all the boomers' terrorism. And now this is the generation, by sheer dint of natural attrition, that runs the country. So if we can fire them all and, just adjust the OAS to life expectancy and say, what the heck is really going on with the CPP? And let them go bankrupt. Just stop the immigration and let them go bankrupt if we have to. But we got some tough decisions and some tough conversations to have. But these are the things that need to happen.
I sometimes feel like I just dropped and did 20 push-ups after listening to you, Jeff, because you really bring that truth, and it's very hard to hear sometimes, but thanks for sharing that. And to answer the question myself, what do we do to wake people up? You run for office, you get into the school boards, you get into the library boards, you put yourself out there, you do the hard work. I've run 2 elections this year so far, the federal one and then a municipal one just recently here in Alberta. And I lost both, but I also gained a lot of support in both. Meeting the same people over and over again. Just entered a room right now, and I reckon it's half the people from my community showed up because there's a lot of people who are there to support. We need to wake up some more of them and get out some more of them. In addition to waking up the people to get out to vote, we also need good people to vote for. There's professional class of politicians out there that's very difficult to kind of break. And yes, there's a lot of boomers involved there, Jeff, completely.
The old party guard.
Right. Well, there's 3 people.
Candidates.
There's 3 people on this panel here that ran in the last federal election. So I think we got to keep knocking on that door as well to get good candidates to come forward, prop them up, support them, provide donations to them, and also have conversations with them and get it out there. In addition to that, we have to have the new media pick up. And this is why I see a lot of bills coming down that are meant to stop that. So Bill C11, C18, some of the quick ones I can bring to the table, 63, anti-hate. We got the new one, C9. These are to stop conversations from happening because they're effective. They're working. We have to keep doing that. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4 podcasters on this show right now as well. So this is what we need more of. Good quality grassroots politicians, good quality grassroots podcasting, and then wake more people up. Because, frankly, what else do we have? We can't fire them all, Jeff. We can't go and say, all right, we're firing that boomer class. That's just simply not an option.
Actually, we have to cut the public service. And he says he wants to do it through attrition. So everybody who's eligible for a pension, bye-bye. And we're going to fill that with fresh blood. We're going to get some fresh blood in the upper echelons and shrink the size of the public service in the process.
If I could jump in on that thought. I agree as far as the boomers. I are one. But it's not
not you.
It's not just the boomers. As Sun Tzu said, and we've heard some quotes here from The Art of War, we have to understand the terrain. And part of that is Gen Z or Gen Z, depending what country you are in. It was those particular voters that were impressed in New York City to vote in what we all sit back and say that's insane, that a radical socialist got elected as mayor in New York, but it just happened again in Seattle. Katie Wilson got in, an absolute unheard of individual. Nobody ever heard of her, but she's running on a program that appeals to Gen Z. And in the upcoming election, everything that we're hearing here is correct, and we're going to be in worse shape financially. Therefore, lack of affordability going into the election is actually going to be our friend. That's one thing that can move people. If they can't buy stuff, they will punt out the guys who are there. And with Gen Z and all the cultural Marxism they've been taught, along with what the boomers have been taught, there's this siren song about free stuff. It's getting down to the place that the party that promises the most free stuff is going to be the one that wins. That's certainly what happened in New York City. It certainly what happened in Seattle. And that's where we go into a campaign. And again, Sun Tzu said, understanding the terrain, there's an air war this time. And there's, as opposed to 2,500 years ago when he wrote his book, there's an air war and there's a ground war. The air war is what we're hearing right here. Everything that's being said here has to be said by individuals here and by others to move the needle. To move the needle, we're not going to convince the entire nation, but we can start to move some votes. The ground war is going to be, as I've laid out, on the strategic approach. But Gen Z is very important here. They're the reason we're losing, because they're believing the lie that just promise more free stuff and everything's going to be all right. Some people say, well, are you optimistic about this? Well, think of the definition, as they say, between an optimist and a pessimist is the pessimist usually has more information. So I try and go with as much information as possible. All of these things that are being said need to continue to be said. We need to chip away. As a real life example of how it's Gen Z, I've taught a course at Concordia University in Montreal a number of different years. And it's a course, it's a graduate course. It's all people working on either Masters of Public Administration or their MBAs. And the last time I taught that one, there were 27 students in the class. This would be sort of people in their mid-20s, smart people, and, fired up, passionate about the country. And I went around the table and I started the course. It was a day long. And I stayed at the start of the course. I said, I'd like to hear from each one of you. What should we do vis-a-vis the issue of fossil fuels? 25 of 27, this is educated people, educated people said, shut all fossil fuels in now, today, stop all production. I was shocked that there's 25 out of 27. I said, do you realize that means employment as we know it is over? And that's, we don't just lose the ability to heat our homes, but the iPhones you use are made from those fossil fuels. The backpacks you carried into this room are made from that. The bikes that you rode to class are all made by products coming from fossil fuels. Do you realize how we will be devastated economically? 25 out of 27 said, we don't care.
Yeah.
We have to save the planet. So again, to some of the comments that already been made, that's the type of thing that we're up against, folks. Boomers, yeah, causing a lot of the problems. Gen Z, there's a real unfortunate joining of those generations, and it's going to take hard work. It can be done, but it's not just the boomers, folks. The Gen Z are getting led astray, have been led astray, and it's going to be bit by bit trying to win them back.
Hey, that's a fair counter. And we're going to get into another question. We'll be going through the whole list again here, folks. So I'm just going to land my airplane on that. At least once a week, I have someone posts and says, you believe in elections? No such thing as elections. Look, we watched Carney come in with $350,000 and take the leadership from the Liberals. And then we also saw their little internal election where two of their top candidates or popular candidates were disqualified. And then was 60% of their voters couldn't even vote within the Liberal Party. So there's a lot of arguments being made that can you vote your way out of this one? I still believe it, or I wouldn't be running in elections if I didn't believe that. But now what I want to do is throw it to Nico. He's going to throw the next question out there shortly. And then we're going to go through the panel again, because I know a lot of you are just dying to get some more input in there.
Can I just say something on top of that, though, about what Stockwell was saying quickly? About the devastating the economy and how it's the boomers and the voting. I'm not sure if people realize, but on May 28th, Bill S-206 which was titled An Act to Develop a National Framework for a Guaranteed Livable Basic Income, was introduced in the Senate. And then just as recent as just a couple of weeks ago, on November the 6th, it passed its second reading, and it was sent now. It's now at the committee. That is going to influence a lot of voters. If this is going to be anything like what COVID was, and like, if Mark Carney, if they end up calling an election and this bill passes, he's going to get all the votes because, who's not going to want to get free money? If it's anything like COVID, where we were getting $2,000 a month, everyone is going to sign up for it. You're going to have husbands, wives, their kids. They're going to be if there's family of 4, could be bringing in more money free from the government than actually having to go to work. That is going to devastate our economy. There will be absolutely zero incentive for anybody to go to work.
Can I speak to that just really briefly?
I'm trying to get to the next one because you're up next, David.
I have my hand up.
Yeah, I know. I see everybody.
We all do on that one.
Put your hands up.
Yeah,
But we all do on that one.
I'm going to finish up, throw it to Nico. Nico's going to bring the next question, and I think you'll all be pleased. But I do think that there is a way to get this done. And I do believe UBI is meant to destroy us, Elisa. I have a whole post about this in the last week, because when 206 came out to second reading to committee, I was asked a question, what's the end game on this one? It wasn't just legalized vote buying, which is what you're highlighting there. It was also to create a dependency class that can never be undependent again. It was to cause hyperinflation, so we all have to get it. And then the cycle will continue until IMF bails us out. And then we get into the problem with Greece that I talked about earlier. Yes, and CDBC, central bank digital currency, is how they're going to roll that out. And you're going to have social credit score is going to dictate what you can buy with this money. So you won't be able to buy farm meat, but you can get the clone meat. It's all coming. It's all coming for sure. But Nico, I'm going to throw it to you now, because I'm dying to get to the next question, which is going to absolutely give the floor to everybody here.
I'm just going to say that I agree. UBI is all about ushering digital IDs. That's all it's about. They're already starting to do it. They're already starting to look at people on welfare that they have to sign up for digital ID in order to get their money. So it's just a matter of time. That's what UBI is all about. Create people that are dependent and then have them sign up for their services that can be turned off. Make sure that you drive your electric cars that we can shut off, that don't work during the winter. Make sure that you look at what's going on in Edmonton, where the new mayor is already talking about 15-minute cities. Like it's a good thing. Oh, don't worry. You won't have to walk very far to get everything you need. That means no car for you. So it's all coming, and it's all going to happen through digital IDs. And there's people on this panel that are a lot more optimistic than I am, because I don't believe that we can vote ourselves out of the trouble in which we are right now. I can't use the word I want to use, but I'm just going to say the French Revolution, I think, is the only way we can actually get out of what we're doing here. But I'm not going to talk about the tools that were used, because I don't condone violence. But something greater than voting is what we're going to need to do. But for the people on the panel that are more optimistic than I am, one thing that Jason said is we need good people to vote for. And I look at Jason, I look at Lisa, I look at Jeff, and I'm like, those are good people. Look at the situation in which you guys are. And I'm not saying it's your fault. I'm just saying this is the system in which we are right now. But if we look at what our options are on the federal level, we have Mark Carney, we have the NDP, we have May that's a drink away from falling on the ground. Then we have Pierre Poilievre, that's not a conservative, that's a liberal. I spent a lot of my time in the US. That dude's a Democrat. He ain't a conservative. And so who do we vote for? I don't see who's available to vote for. But the question I have for you guys is, last Friday, Pierre Poilievre had the opportunity to trigger an election. If he would have voted for the Bloc Québécois amendments to the budget, which the NDP, the Green, voted for, he had the opportunity, if he would have bagged that bill, because that amendment, because who cares what they wanted? Doesn't matter. If the end goal was to trigger an election, he had the perfect opportunity to do it. But he keeps on talking about his expensive. We don't need an expensive election. We need an affordable budget. So is he really the man that can take us out of this? Is it possible even that we're going to see an election being triggered, a Christmas election triggered on the 17th next week, because this is the last vote on the budget. So if an election is going to happen, a snap election is going to happen on that day. But that being said, does Carney even want one, considering that he's 2 seats away from a majority? He just needs to recruit 2 more people and he's going to steal his election without a majority. So are we getting an election on, is it feasible that we're getting a snap election on the 17th? Or do we really want to vote for Pierre Poilievre? And does Carney even need one? That's the question. That's the questions that are all wrapped together that I have for you guys.
Now, feel free to bring back anything you want to address at this point, and then try and answer that question, David.
I think I really liked what Stock had to say, and I completely agree with his.
We're on that level now. He just Stock.
No, that's what we called him in Ottawa. But sorry, the honorable Stockwell Day. But
hey, I got something better. Stick with Stock. Stick with Stock. It's a good campaign slogan.
So I just want to go through a few things. I know he'll probably agree with me on some and not others. But when you look at what he outlined in terms of the ground game, he's absolutely right. This is the model we use for Take Back Alberta. This is the model that APP is using. Ground game is the answer to our problems. But the problem we face is actually an earlier question, which is, how do we wake people up? People aren't waking up. In municipal elections in Alberta, we had some of the lowest turnouts in the history of our province this last go around in October. People don't care. They're disengaged. Now, I know that Stockwell Day has done a lot of reading of history, so have I, but I have concentrated almost all my history on 3 time periods. The one I'm going to discuss right now and the one that was just discussed by Nico are, I think, the most analogous moments in history to where we are. The fall of the Roman Republic happened because of mass immigration, followed by inequality creating oligarchs, and those oligarchs destroyed democracy and brought in the empire. That is what happened. I've studied it for hundreds, maybe even thousands of hours. If you look at the land reforms that Gaius Marius tried to bring in, that then led to the rise of a fellow named Sulla, who ended up then leading to the rise of Julius Caesar, who everyone's aware of. We are in that civil war period in the West. We are being invaded by cheap labor. The reason that we have so many immigrants is not just some nefarious conspiracy theory, but because many, many wealthy people make a lot of money off of using these immigrants as employees. There is a huge lobby in this country to keep immigration at very high levels so that wealthy people can continue to make obscene amounts of money off of cheap labor. This is an even bigger problem in the United States, where their illegal labor is below minimum wage and used almost exclusively in labor jobs, particularly in places like Texas. So the problem that we face, while I appreciate that we can win an election, I do believe that the Conservative Party of Canada could absolutely win an election. In fact, both Erin O'Toole and Andrew Scheer got more votes than Justin Trudeau. In a more fair system, he would not have been able to form a government. In the Netherlands, he would not have been able to form a government. In Israel, he would not have been able to form a government. The problem with Canada is our political system. The problem is that our votes don't count. That in Alberta particularly, we are not represented by population. We have some of the highest population ridings. But if you look at the Senate, it's a complete joke, right? The fact that Alberta has almost, and Stockwell Day understands this. When I worked for Stephen Harper, he understood this. In fact, Stephen Harper's response to it was he hated the Senate so much because of the inequality that he refused to appoint senators, which then allowed Justin Trudeau to appoint the vast majority of the Senate, which means even if a Conservative government is elected, anything can be vetoed by a massive majority in the Senate. So can we vote our way out? The answer is no, not in the way you're thinking, because most people think that it's just going to the ballot box on election day and casting a ballot. Won't work. You'll never win. All of the decisions are made way before that ever happens. Nomination processes, party leadership races, that is what people need to be involved in, because that is where the actual decisions are made. If you think you are going to change a country by going to a ballot box once every 4 years and hoping, then you're treating politics like the weather. You're not treating politics like what it is, which is citizen engagement. If we do not want to go the route of tyranny, there is only one answer. There's no other. You have to be involved. No politician. Pierre Poilievre's not going to save you. Danielle Smith's going to save you. And no offense, Stockwell Day's not going to save you. No one's going to save you. You have to be involved. And I know I've heard Stock give this speech. If you don't get involved, nothing's going to happen. That's the truth. And if you want to know how people need to wake up, they need to stop looking to heroes. They need to stop looking to leaders. They need to stop looking to people to do the work for them. And they need to realize that they have to do the work. And sometimes that's going to be like Jason. And you're going to go and you're going to lose and you're going to lose and you're going to lose, like Abraham Lincoln did. You are going to have to fight, and you're going to have to take people calling you names. You're going to have to take losses. You're going to have to take hits to your ego. You're going to have to go out there and fight. Or you could sit around and complain, which is what most people do. Now, it gets even worse, though. The apathy is almost impossible to overcome. And if we do get bread and circuses, now I want to make a point that I'm sure Stockwell Day knows, but something going through the Senate really doesn't mean that much because the House of Commons can easily veto it. There are all kinds of crazy bills that have passed the Senate that never saw the light of day. A lot of it is posturing and things like that. The real decisions in Canada are made in the House of Commons. And that's why when a bill passes in the Senate, if it's proposed in the Senate, it then goes to the House of Commons to be passed. So Senate bills are different than House of Commons bills. They're often virtue signaling. They're often trial balloons. They're not actual laws. So we don't have, UBI is definitely the plan. I 100% believe that. This is a trial balloon. This is not the enforcement. We still have some time. However, and I think this is very, very important, communism has risen in many countries and it has destroyed them. And we are currently experiencing a communist revolution in Canada. If the hate bill passes, if this hate speech bill passes, many of our voices will be silenced. Many people are going to be put in prison. It's already happening in the United Kingdom. People are literally being arrested for the things they say on social media. This is not some fear mongering. This is not pessimism. This is realism. It's looking at what's happening around the world and saying to yourself, what is going on? And what I would say to all of our listeners, and I see there's almost 1,000 people live listening to this right now. And what I would say to you is this. If you don't do something, it doesn't matter what any one of us on this panel does. Stop looking up to heroes. And I have people all the time say, David, you have to take my idea and you have to take it to the leaders so they'll implement it. And I say, no. Your idea, you do it. That's how it works. Stop appealing to your leaders. Stop hoping in your leaders. I would say, and I think Nico made a very good point, I have no love for Pierre Poilievre. I think he is a bad man. Not just and I think that if he continues on as the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada, we will lose again, primarily because he keeps an absolute banshee of a woman named Jenny Byrne who loses elections. She lost in 2015. She just lost. She is one of the worst campaigners in the country, and she's elevated by insiders in politics, claiming that she's one of the best. She is not. I beat her in a nomination with a 24-year-old guy in Edmonton. His name's Dane Lloyd. There is no way that the Conservative Party will win with Jenny Byrne in any sort of leadership capacity in this party. And that is because she is bad at her job. She is a bully. She intimidates people. And the culture that she has created in the Conservative Party of Canada is toxic. The reason that Pierre has kept her around is because he's adopted and he has a very hard attachment issue problems. And he was with her for 10 years, lived with her. This is his common law wife that he's keeping around in a high position in Canada. Now, with all that said, do you think that a Conservative Party that looks like that is as corrupt as this one is going to fix mass immigration, insane fiscal mismanagement? It's not. We need a new leader and we need a new party. Not a new party, not a new make a new party, but a party with a new vision. That's what I believe. And I do not believe, I 100% do not believe, and I'm saying it on the record, I say it on the record all the time. If Jenny Byrne remains in any sort of leadership capacity in the Conservative Party of Canada, we will lose the next election. Period. End of story.
Will there be an election after November 17th?
There's not going to be an election this fall. The NDP are never going to allow it. If they have to abstain, they'll abstain. The Conservatives don't want it. They don't have money. The Liberals don't want it because, as you pointed out, Nico, they could easily make their way to a majority if they have more time. There's not going to be an election. That's all fundraising speculation and people trying to hype stuff up. There's not going to be an election for 3 more years, guys. Like, they're just not going to do it, and Carney's going to have his way. I think Pierre will survive. I think he will run in the election, and I think he will lose.
All right. Okay. And there's a lot of truth there. And I've never been mentioned in the same sentence as Abraham Lincoln before. So thank you for that, David.
I was going to say that's all I retained from your speech, David, is that Jason's like Abraham Lincoln.
Abraham Lincoln.
Goddamn. Damn.
All right. Well, maybe we'll freeze Alberta in sometime in the future. But Stock, I'm going to throw it to you now because I can say that. I'm going to throw it to you now. Is there going to be an election coming up? And do you have any rebuttals or comments about what David said?
I don't think there'll be an election. One thing that all parliamentarians fear more than anything is losing their own seats. And so they're early on here. I don't think there will be. That will give time for the consequences of liberal fiscal policy to continue to impoverish Canadians. And 2 or 3 more years, and I hate to say this, it's heartbreaking to say it, of increasing poverty for Canadians will wake up enough and will make enough people open to looking for the alternative. We've seen it all through our history. The economy is often the factor, and whatever political persuasion, the other guys couldn't do it, you throw them out. Let's bring in these new boys and girls, see if they can do it. That's going to be in our favor. Then we implement, or as I've already said, we start to implement the tough work constituency by constituency right now. So no election, bad economic times ahead, an awakening. And we're seeing some of this right now. Some of you would be familiar with a member of parliament by the name of Jamil Javani, conservative from Oshawa, I believe. He's doing this. He's going into the universities, and some of them are he's almost causing riots, but he's just talking basic conservative values. So he goes in there, and this is what has to be happening. This is what we all have to be doing. And I like what David said. This doesn't depend on one person. This depends on each one of us. But when you talk to a crowd, even if they're angry, there's going to be a few people there that you will bring over to your side of the argument. We do that in a couple of dozen constituencies and relentlessly pushing these. We have the added factor, of impoverishment that's going to hit it. It can be done. Pierre Poilievre can do it. I think he will stay on as leader. He's got a lot of great strengths and capabilities. He can do it. I'm sometimes concerned about some of the people around him who are giving him advice. And I'm thinking of some of the men I know. I'm not thinking of any women right now. So it can be done. And to us, there is no alternative but to fight for every inch of ground and retain that ground. And I think we can do it.
Well, I think Pierre started watching this episode now. I think you'd like to hear some of that. Maybe he's taking some names on what he's going to do to clean the house. But wow. Okay. Lisa, let's go to you now. Is there going to be election here? Well, actually, stop. If you don't mind, I got one question. Will the NDP abstain, or will they vote with the Liberals?
Yeah, great question. Hard to say. Whatever it's going to take to make sure there's not an election, they will do. The NDP, and look, I know people who vote NDP, rank and file, and there's some great people there. But socialism, and we have to talk about this, we've got to talk about it intelligently. Socialism is a lie. It is built on envy and greed. It saps the incentive of people. It makes people want free stuff. And you talk about history. Go back to the book of Numbers in the Old Testament, and just after the children of Abraham, the children of Israel, had got out of the slavery of Egypt. Remember, it was only a few weeks they wanted to go back. And Moses said to them, "Why do you want to go back there?" And they said, "Well, we like the food." And they were, looked at the vegetarian diet. They talked about leeks and onions, both of which I hate, but I guess it was pretty good stuff then. But the key phrase there was, "and it was given to us at no cost." And that's what's going to cost us votes, is the lies of the socialists and socialist liberals who are going to promise free stuff to people. And again, I come back to, I think 2 or 3 years from now, the cost of that free stuff is going to wake enough people up that we can win back a couple dozen of those ridings and take this thing and get it done right.
All right. So the ground game, and there's a plan there from your perspective, and I don't like leaks either. Lisa, do you have a follow-up here? Is there going to be an election?
Yeah, I too don't think there's going to be an election, but I do want to go back for just a second for what we were saying about the Conservative Party and with Jenny Byrne. I'm not sure if people are aware or not, but here in Ontario, they actually stopped a lot of the nomination process. So people that wanted to run as, in the Conservative Party, people that had been knocking on doors for over a year, spending their own money on literature. And in some places, like here in Durham, for my riding, there were about 13 people that were running for the nomination for the Pickering, Brooklyn area. And as I said, they had spent all of this money and over a year worth of their time to have the Conservative government come in and bring in a drop-in candidate that doesn't even live in the area. So that was quite disappointing. And I'm sure it happened all across Canada with the Conservatives. I know a lot of ridings that happened to. And
97 times.
What's that?
97 times it happened.
Yeah, absolutely.
And even
crazy.
the leader, right? Even the leader of the Conservatives a drop in. So you can't be that surprised that they did it 96 other times. Just saying.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. It's very disappointing, and I mean, because I'm a true conservative through and through, and there's just a lot of things that haven't been rubbing me the right way with the conservatives, or the fake conservatives, as I'd like to call them, because they're definitely not conservatives. I can't remember who said it was earlier, who had said that, the progressive conservatives, right? So that's exactly it. But based on the current economic and political conditions that we're having here today, I don't think a federal election in the near future is going to happen. The governments generally avoid going to the polls when the economy is weakening, and that's exactly the state that we're in right now. Affordability pressures right now are extremely high. Public sentiment is volatile right now. We have a lot of talk because, we have conservatives that are crossing the floor and they're becoming liberals. And it's not just the one that has done it. I mean, there's a lot of rumors that another 3 or 4 might happen. I mean, they're going to end up with a majority government because of this. Voters are going to punish the incumbents during the downturns. And that's exactly what's going to happen. A lot of people aren't happy with what's happening right now. So they are going to start turning on each other. We know that that's the government's ultimate goal, is to pit one person against another. And if we end up having a new leader, it's typically they're going to want to wait a little bit to build some kind of stability and political capital before even risking going and running a campaign at this time. I don't think it's going to happen.
All right, some good points there for sure, and I concur to a lot of them, especially if they do change the leader, because there's a leadership race coming up for the Conservatives that they'll want some time before another election. And I don't think any other party can afford one at this time either.
No, they can't afford it at this time. And you know what? Canada really, instead of thinking about running another election, they really just need to try and focus more on protecting our culture at this time, our jobs, our housing, our future is what they need to start doing. They don't need to have another election to pat themselves on the back and give themselves a majority government. It would be just nice if they actually thought about the people just once.
Yeah, that might take a few cycles. Now, Jeff, you had your hand up, and you've been through an election. You know what this means. And do you think they may be calling an election soon? And if not, that means we got this budget, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to an election anytime soon. They're not real conservatives, right? And they're not a real opposition. They're a controlled opposition. And I say that because they play by the Liberals' rules. They only oppose them until the Liberals get really upset and don't really, they end up not discussing the real issues. So they play inside that progressive paradigm where they pretend like carbon is a pollutant and we need to capture it and do a bunch of dumb things when we could be developing our natural resources. You may be aware, I think I might be viral by now again for a clip from the James O'Keefe show that I did recently, and it was with my own experience with gender ideology, with the Children's Hospital of Eastern Ontario, basically stalking my daughter while I was in Iraq, and calling her phone directly because she turned 16, so she didn't need her daddy's consent anymore. Come on in for your sex change, and I had to come back from Iraq to deal with that mess. I actually took leave early and stuff. There was a whole story that I made up so I could get out of there, but. Pierre Poilievre was my MP. He was the guy that I called, and I told him the whole story, and asked if he would read a letter out on the floor of the House of Commons if I wrote one, and he said no. And then he went on to vote for a conversion therapy bill to jail any parent who doesn't want to give their kid a sex change for taking their kid to see a qualified therapist to get some counseling with their body image issues or systematic gender confusion, as is going on in the schools right now. To undo that, if you try to undo that, then you go to jail for 5 years. That's parenting is outlawed, thanks to Pierre Poilievre. He knew all about it. And he does have a leadership review coming up. So since I'm already viral, I might as well make lots of noise about this, because he's an absolute evil scumbag that will do whatever it is that he's got to do to advance his own career. And clearly doesn't care about other people. So so we can get rid of him. And somebody like Jamil Javani would be a better option. He didn't vote on Bill C4. He wasn't an MP at that time. So maybe there's hope for the party, but they have to grow a spine and stop being progressives. It is a progressive uniparty because of the Conservatives, because they capitulate and they're weak. And they won't. They could have dropped the government, just a few weeks ago, and they didn't. So, are you really opposing, guys? Are you in it to win it? I don't think so. And the floor crossing is demonstrative of just how alike these two parties really are. And as is, the collapse of Pierre's lead in the lead up to the election, because that's all they did. Is they switched the Wizard of Oz with the man behind the curtain and brought Mark Carney in to replace Justin Trudeau. And, people are screaming at the PPCers for, ruining the Conservatives' chances. You guys had a 20-point lead, and all of the voters that you gained when people finally realized how disgusting Justin Trudeau really is, they all went from the Conservatives to the Liberals. That's where those votes went. So again, that just goes to show you how alike the two parties are. I think you got to get, real leadership in there in order to change that cultural issue at the very top. I think they even believe that they're conservatives. I don't know. So they, but you need to get somebody who's, a principled conservative back in there, not just some ruthless scumbag, a practiced and polished professional politician like the paper tiger Pierre Poilievre over there. He's and of course he's all he did was take off his glasses and put on a T-shirt that makes him look like he has muscles, and everybody's like, oh yeah, he's totally a badass conservative. And I'm like, no, he's not. He is the most dapper guy in the parliament. He's always got the designer frames and three-piece suit, and he snaps that top button closed better than anybody in the Commons. And now I watch him in a basement in a church, and he's wearing a plaid shirt. I lived in his riding. I saw him in public. That's not how he dresses. He wears cashmere shirts over his cashmere sweater over frickin' I don't know, Armani t-shirt probably. That's Pierre Poilievre. So I saw him trying to do that with his plaid shirt. He was trying to snap that top button closed when he stood up to answer a question in the basement of the church. And I was like, this is embarrassing. Get this guy out of here. And he's evil. So all the more reason to go after him now before his leadership review.
All right. So fashion-wise, he's not your guy. Got it. But there's a leadership review coming up, and I'll kind of throw a couple cents in here. I think the NDP are actually going to vote for and with the Liberal on this one. They propped them up many times under Justin. The deals can happen. And with Senate Bill 206 coming down the pipe, maybe it won't be just a balloon or some vanity bill. Maybe they'll get it passed. I know the NDP would love that, and that could be the way to buy that. So maybe they will support it. Go ahead and tell the rest of Canada that there's majority support for this budget and keep going. And I actually been calling for many years. At this point, NDP may as well merge with the Liberal. They're basically the same party now. So I wouldn't be shocked if there was some sort of deal where it's not just 2 or 3, but the rest come over and join the Liberal and get them that majority for the next little bit that they wanted. Plus, once those nails are in the coffin and that UBI is out there, Lisa's 100% correct. There's no way people are going to vote for conservatives that want to remove that. So you're either going to have a conservative party that won't take that away, or if they speak about it, they're not going to get in. So it's going to be very, very difficult to see how we ever get out from a Liberal government at this point going forward. That's my biggest concern. And as somebody that ran conservative, so conservative I was called far right, I think faith, family, future, that makes you far right now. But I ran on that as well. And I would love to see the Conservative Party move back to the right and be far more conservative. But I think we're losing that battle too. Those ropes are getting very tight and they're not moving at all. So I think there won't be an election, but I do think the NDP are going to back the Liberals on this. They're going to make a deal and usher in 206 to be UBI plus everything else that Carney, Marxist Carney, cover-up Carney, crazy Carney, whatever you want to call him now, has in store for us. Nico?
I'm going to add something to what Jeff said, that when the Wizard of Oz actually made its apparition and became the selected leader of Canada, Pierre Poilievre crumbled. He was not able to identify 5 key points and just marketing terms, just repeat them until everybody's blue in the face, tired of hearing it. He didn't have what it takes to do it. Yet our brothers to the south, the same thing happened. They removed Biden. They put word salad Kamala Harris in a race against Trump. What did Trump do? He pivoted, he did something that Pierre Poilievre doesn't have the balls to do. He went on podcasts that last an hour, 2 hours, that are not scripted, to speak about what he believes to be true. And guess what? He won. But what most people don't understand is, what swung the vote in the US the most? Saying out loud that women cannot have penises. That is what swung the vote in the US, because I record with a non-woke liberal every single day. Something that we agree? Women don't have penises, and men do not belong in women's bathroom. There's nobody with common sense that will disagree with you. If they do, you can't change their mind, so screw them. Fuck them. Don't even have a conversation with them. You can't change their minds. That's all Pierre Poilievre had to do. Grow a pair, take his balls out of his women's purse, and just admit that women can't have penises. He would have won the election. Hands down, nothing else. That's all he had to say. Didn't have the balls to say it, yet he had the game plan. The perfect game plan that literally just worked. He couldn't do it. So I don't want to turn this into a Pierre Poilievre bashing. I do that enough every single day. And the reason I'm so hard on Pierre Poilievre is I am a real conservative. I'm closer to what a Republican is in the US. I'm a Christian first and foremost. He ain't a Christian. He does not believe that Christ is God. And not only that, he's not a leader. Would you follow Pierre Poilievre in battle? I wouldn't. I'm a martial artist. I love guns. That guy is not a man. I fold him in 4 just by looking at him. He'd sit down. That's not the type of leader that I want. I want a man. I want a masculine man to run this country. Love or hate Trump, that guy don't care about your feelings. He doesn't care. He's going to do what he believes is right. And I'm not saying we need Donald Trump, and I'm not saying he's the answer, because I agree with David. There's only one person that's going to save us, and he ain't here right now. He hasn't come back yet. But we need a leader that's going to have the balls to do the right thing, no matter how it feels to our purple-haired liberals out there that are hurt by everything that we have to say. We can convince them to join our side because they don't have something called common sense. So why are we even trying? And this is where we are, because it's simple. Policies have caused us to have a crumbling economy. We just need regular guys like Jeff, regular guys like Jason, regular women like Lisa to just. And I'm not saying you're not regular, Scott. I just don't Stock. I just don't know you. So that's as much as I know you. But all I'm saying, we just need regular people that are ready to flip tables. Because I'm tired. I want to see people getting escorted out of the Commons because they're losing their shit. Because they're tired of the WWE for adults that we're seeing every single day. people throwing little comments at each other, never fucking answering a question. I'm just tired of the bread and circuses for the people out there to quote David, but that's the game plan. It's been operational for 2,000 years. I'm just sick and tired. I want people to break tables. I want people to flip their fingers if they have to. I don't care. We just need to wake Canada up because Canada is asleep. They're complacent. They don't want to swallow that red pill. Unfortunately, the pill's too big to swallow. They don't want to believe that our politicians are not here to save us. And I'm tired of it. I'm really, really sick of it. We need something to happen, and like you guys, I'm doing everything that I can, and maybe one day I will be breaking tables in the House of Commons, but I don't want to. And I think that's what we need. We need people that don't want to be in politics. I don't want to be in politics. I really don't. I really don't. I don't want to be part of that corrupt system. I don't want to. But unfortunately, that's what we need. So I'll end my rant on that. We have literally 5 minutes away, 5 minutes to go. There's 5 people I want to ask a very simple question that most people can't answer anymore, but I'll give you guys like 30 seconds to a minute. I understand we have a lot of politicians here, so I'll say 30 seconds knowing you'll take a minute. I understand. But starting with David, what does it mean to be Canadian?
I did 200 episodes of a podcast on this very topic called The Canadian Story, so there is no answer. The most fundamental aspect of being Canadian is not being American. That's the answer. The core of Canadian identity is that they're not American. That's why Elbows Up worked so well. If you want to get Canadians excited, tell them that Americans are better than them and they'll flip out. But in terms of the actual identity, well, we have a really nice country and it's beautiful. That was the universal thing that people said, and we're nice. Oh, and universal healthcare came up a lot. But I did 200 interviews on this, and that was when I came to the conclusion that Alberta had to become independent, because I realized that Canada doesn't have an identity.
Fair enough. And I know somebody's going to clip Nico saying, "I want a man," and just leave it at that.
I can just say it. I want a man. There you go. You don't need to clip it. There you go. Done.
Stock, does Canada have an identity? And if so, what is it?
Well, our historic roots show that we do have an identity, and it's people from all kinds of backgrounds believing in some basic things like working hard individually, first of all, to raise families and move ahead and take on, whether we go back 150 years and take on the elements, take on everything that comes against us, pull together, but we respect each other's freedoms. We don't impose ours on them. We live by a rule of law. And those are the things that make us a country strong and free. As we, continue to hold those up and live into the future as we have in our history, stick together when we're attacked, and then live out our lives individually, pursuing those things that matter most to us. It was actually an American who said, Canadians or conservatives are famous because we shoot our wounded. We can't think collectively, which is a good thing, I guess, like the NDP and Liberals can. They think collectively. We need to know there's times we just have to think collectively. Stop shooting the wounded, and we have a choice here. As Benjamin Franklin said, excuse me to all the sensitive liberals who hear me quoting an American, but we have a choice. We either hang together or we're going to hang separately and the country falls apart. So let's hang together as we have in the past, show that as Canadians, whether it's going into the First World War, the Second World War, the Korean War, we come together when we need to, and then we let people live their lives when after we have faced those real challenges to our very existence.
Interesting to hear that, and it'll certainly jump to mind in a minute. But Lisa, Canada have an identity, and if so, what is it?
Well, it's a mixed identity right now. I think that if you are truly a Canadian, it means standing up when something isn't right. It's even if you're the only person in the room willing to say it. It means loving your country enough to defend it from the corruption, the overreach, and everyone who's trying to chip away at our freedoms right now while pretending that they're protecting us, because they are not protecting us right now. being Canadian isn't about being a political parties. It's not about slogans. It's about loyalty to the truth and loyalty to your community, to your friends, to your family, to your God, and loyalty to your future generations to come. It's being Canadian means freedom. It means freedom of speech, freedom of choice, freedom of belief, freedom from the government intrusion. And I think that that's what we need to get back to. And I will do everything I can to help get us there.
Jeff, you were putting your life on the line for Canada. Do we have an identity? And if so, what is it?
Well, I was going to say, don't forget about Afghanistan, because we always say the World War I, World War II, Korea, we pulled together there. Don't forget that we pulled together for Afghanistan, and my generation was there for 13 years. Like, we're still here. So that's a very proud legacy. And the flag under which my forefathers became the fallen was the red ensign. And we used to show our heritage proudly, but now we have a logo instead of our heritage on the flag. The left is doing their damnedest to make sure that that flag is smeared as somehow racist. So it looks like they don't want us to get it back. And there's a reason for that. It's because it's a deliberate destruction of our identity. Aufheben der Kultur was the motto of the Marxist professors at the Frankfurt School in Germany, quite infamously. It's a proud legacy that goes all the way back to Alexander the Great of being great liberators. The mantle was probably taken up before the Americans by the British Empire, of course, and colonialism has been completely defamed as some kind of an enslavement effort, when in fact it was one of emancipation. Rhodesia, named for Cecil Rhodes, as in the Rhodes Scholar, was the breadbasket of Africa, and now it's a communist shithole called Zimbabwe. So, they're better off with us. And this has everything to do, of course, with the kind of psychological operations that the Russians have been running since the end of the Second World War, anti-colonial. And they're doing it to us now, too, and trying to radicalize the indigenous population to a large success. I'll, add that idle no more and the like. But the real heritage is one of, what's it called? It's called the Peace and Friendship Treaty out here in Nova Scotia with the Micmac. Of course, there were some problems initially, mostly coming from them because they were terribly violent. But it's not like that anymore. And we've served in World War I, World War II, and Afghanistan with them as well. And they're doing everything they can to drive a wedge between us and them with this Indigenous Veterans Day stuff. And when we come out for Remembrance Day, we get struggle sessions. Shame on us for being colonists and the like. So it's all deliberate. And we are a target. I think the veterans in particular are a target because, these are the values. Like, we're willing to die for the values. The Greek philosophy, Roman law, and Christian values. That's our legacy and our heritage, and ours is one of great emancipators as well. So great emancipators, great builders. We do have a Trans Canada highway and railroad. Architects, engineers, some of the best in the world, some great science. Alexander the Graham Bell Museum here in Nova Scotia, the telegraph. I think he got the rights for the telephone, but telegraph, and amazing, inventor. So on the level of Benjamin Franklin. So and that's a shared heritage that we have with the United States as well. We're great partners with them. So I say, let's build Fortress North America, make ourselves as prickly as possible, and get back to being the true North, strong and free.
All right,
it's freedom from coercion, by the way. That's what we mean when we say freedom. That's what Friedrich Hayek said in the Constitution of Liberty. Anyway, it's freedom from coercion, and that's the line that's been crossed, especially with COVID. We've gone from a country where the guiding mantra is, as it was in ancient Rome, do as you will, but don't harm another, to do as I say or else. That is the line that was crossed, and that's why we're no longer a free country.
And as a Gen Zer, okay, and I definitely want to highlight here that what I'm hearing a lot of is Canada had a history, and we certainly had an identity, and it was rooted in that history that we had. But I think we've been diluted ever since we started raising flags for other countries, having pronouns, removing Don Cherry from TV, and painting politics all over our sidewalks. We started to dilute that. And one of the things that I think we could highlight at this point is the number one target in Canada is our identity. If we don't have one, we get all confused. And if we're all confused, we'll accept anything, whether it's more like America, less like America, elbows up, elbows down, hate the left, hate the right, have hate. If as long as we're targeting identity and we don't know what we have anymore, we're in a lot of trouble. I'd like to see us reclaim our history and our identity that we had. And there's a lot of nostalgia in what I heard everybody say here. But I don't think we're at that stage anymore. So I think our new identity has to be fighters, people that do want to fight and get this next battle done so that we can get back to a strong and free, where we're not changing the anthem at the beginning of football games or hockey games or baseball games. We're not virtue signaling with land acknowledgement, and we're not really concerned about the individual's desire to change who they are from a day-to-day basis. We actually have a strong identity. So to answer your question directly, Nico, I think we had one, we need one, and I hope we get one.
You know, this is a question I've put a lot of thought into it, and I've asked myself multiple times, and I want to take it back to, to me, what it means to be Canadians. I want people to remember the settlers that came here 400 or 500 years ago, the type of climate they had to face. They did it without electricity. They did it without technology. They did it with black powder guns against monsters that can literally tear you apart. They're called bears. So when I think about what it is to be a Canadian, I think that we're resilient. We are tough beyond imagination, that we learn to live and survive by relying on each other. But the number one thing that we did is believe in God. That was always a great unifier for all of us. And it's a good reason why the Marxists always go after God. That is always the first thing they remove for the people, and they replace God by themselves. So we need to remember that the war we're facing right now is spiritual in nature. Like it or not, you're involved. And remember that it is not left versus right. The problem we're facing is top versus bottom.
Well, I think on that note, we can wrap up because thank you very much for everybody to come out here, Stock. It was really great to have you on this Mashup. I'm really glad that you stayed this entire time because, this was quite the conversation to have, and you brought a lot of insight. Jeff, as always, you bring that stoic level to us, and you also make sure that we're very aware of what's going on all over the place, and I really appreciate that, brother. I love it when you come. Lisa, you've knocked it out of the park again, and you've done it without salary. So you're getting used to that. You came on here for free, you work for free, but you're working for the people. You are the people's counselor, counselor. So I appreciate you showing up here tonight. David, I was kind of a little goosebumps when you called me your friend at the beginning, and you kind of topped it with that whole Lincoln comment. So I'm going to have to get a call hat and move on from there, but I really appreciate you being here, brother. It was a good time. And Nico, as always, I love your unfettered, unfiltered, and raw approach, and I'd love to see you smash the tables in the House of Commons one day. You may not want to be there, but we may have to put you in there to get the job done. Well, everybody, thank you very much for joining us. Make sure you share this out, and you come back in 2 more weeks on November 29th as we have another Mashup, talk politics, and we're looking for solutions. You all take care. Have yourself a wonderful evening, and God bless.